Hi, and welcome to another episode of Hot Takes with me, the Silver Fox. I do like Fridays because Fridays often give you an opportunity to talk about what happened on the Thursday, and in particular on Question Time. And of course, for those who watched it, they will know Angela Constance went on there, and it was what can only really be described as an absolute car crash. There is a saying that when you're in a hole, stop digging. Someone should tell this to Angela. She lost the plot. She had to admit things that perhaps most people in the SNP don't want to admit, even if it's true. And she went on about things and she deflected and she couldn't answer the question. And it was really quite embarrassing. And I think there are people, certainly within the SNP itself, who are kind of the opinion that Angela Constance should never go on there again. She can't think on her feet. She lacks the ability to understand what people are asking her about. And she just generally came across as being, well, a bit stupid and a bit angry. And someone who really doesn't understand her brief. So we'll take a look at this just to see how bad it is and to see why Angela is just excellent value for money. Here goes. Now, of course, this is the woman who wants to bring the complete control of the Scottish justice system under her control, you know, as part of the Justice Secretary, so she has the final say on what justice is in Scotland. Can you imagine a justice system run by a woman who is quite literally this stupid? She wants trials without juries because juries sometimes vote to do things opposite to what the government wants. So if you can get rid of juries, then you've only got to control the judges. But if you can control the judges, then the judges will always give the decision they want. Imagine, for example, if Lady Haldane had been controlled by the likes of this creature, she wouldn't have come out with the fact that the gender bill was effectively dead in the water because she'd have been too scared to do so for fear of losing her job because Angela didn't like it. And that's another reason for having an independent judiciary, of course, to keep power out of the hands of morons like Angela Constance. Anyway, Angela Constance's brutal Question Time debut slaughtered as the Yes Chief admits Skexit is way off, which we all know. It's not way off, it's just never going to happen. It's just not available. It will never happen because people look at the likes of Angela Constance and go, please God, no. The Scottish Government's Justice Secretary was hammered by viewers after the show, while Stephen Noon suggested Skexit was some way off, and she effectively agreed. She is a bear of very little brains, isn't she? Anyway, the SNP's Angela Constance endured a brutal Question Time debut on Thursday night, with viewers blasting her on social media. The Scottish Government's Justice Secretary appeared in the BBC show alongside the likes of Scottish Labour leader Anna Sawar and the Scottish Conservative Deputy Leader Megan Gallagher. Now, both of them tend to be on their game. They're both pretty shrewd actors in this. They both know what they're doing. Experience, I presume, is a lot of it. Particularly Megan, she can think on her feet. Anna Sawar, I'll always say, he's been a very, very clever man because he has refrained from opening his mouth too often. He speaks when he has to, but unless he has to, he keeps his powder dry. And that's always a good thing in a leader. Nobody can object to him for the things he's said and done because he hasn't said and done anything. And when something does need to be done, he sends out Jackie Bailey, teeth bared and claws out. There's something you don't want to be facing. So, yeah, I've got respect for both Anna Sawar and Megan Gallagher on that. They're both shrewd, intelligent people. Unlike, of course, Angela Constance and anyone, really, within the SNP. Anyway, political strategist Stephen Noon, who advised Alex Salmond during the independence referendum campaign. Oh dear, not a good thing to have on your CV, is it really? And journalist Kate Andrew made up the panel, which convened in Kelso. A number of questions were raised, including if Scottish independence was now a pipe dream and what could be done to improve the education in Scotland. Miss Constance's response failed to hit the right note with viewers. Asked by host Fiona Bruce to address the dwindling SNP support in the polls, she said she would dispute that point and had to be brought on track after going on a rant about Labour. How can you possibly dispute a point that is empirical fact? Your polls are down. How can you dispute the fact that the polls show you're down? Here's the poll. It shows you down. That is the truth. And you're disputing it for what reason? Because you don't like it? That's not a reason to say that something is wrong. The great thing, and this is the thing I always like, the great thing about facts is they don't give one iota about what you think. They just are. And that's what the SNP need to realise. Anyway, asked what the SNP's policy on achieving independence was, she said the SNP's policy on achieving independence is to campaign for it. Excellent. Excellent. She said to put it front and centre of the next general election. Well, there you go. And then when you lose, that'll be your answer then, won't it? We've put this front and centre and then we lost. So, independence dead in the water. Always has been, always will be. Because people aren't stupid. The SNP is stupid. And because they are stupid, they assume everyone else is as stupid as they are. Because they have no concept of what it is to be clever. And so they just assume, oh yes, everyone will vote for independence. It's such a bright idea. But the people don't, because people know how awful and bad it is. They just have to look around to see what you've done with the powers you've got. How much worse would it be if you had all the powers and no safety net from Westminster? Anyway, Miss Constance went on to accuse the Tories and Labour of being democracy deniers. That's a bit rich from the woman who lost the last referendum on independence and says it's not true. No, I can't hear what you're saying. She was pushed several times on how she would persuade either party to enter into Skexit negotiations, and of course she was unable to provide an answer. Well, say it ain't so. Even Mr Noon, who is Yes Scotland's chief strategist, appeared cautious as he appeared to admit Scotland wasn't ready for independence. Brackets, and never will be, close brackets. Instead, he said he wanted to see the Nats take their time to make sure that if Scotland was to leave the UK, it would be on good times, and admitted it could take over 20 years. And if it's going to take that lifespan, why are we paying a piss load of money right now for all these natty little brochures for Jamie Hebburn, millions of pounds a year for his department? Why is there all these tens of millions a year going out to the foreign embassies with 35 million ring fenced, even though they're cutting the budget by 30 million just for mental health alone? But hey, you know, it's 20 years away, but we've got to be ready. What a load of toss. They won't be in government in 20 years. They may not even be in government in 20 weeks. And if I had my way, they wouldn't be in government in 20 bloody days. Anyway, he said we have to take it slightly more slowly than the SNP has been arguing for publicly. He added, I believe passionately in the independence, but I don't want us to become independent in the I do want us to become independent in the best possible way. Now, I can honestly respect someone's desire for an independent Scotland. I respect their wishes that could be. I disagree with the way the SNP are going about it because it's division and hate and you know, just generally nastiness. But I don't disrespect the fact that some people want independence. However, just because they desire it doesn't mean it must become so. And I also respect the fact that a lot of people, myself included, think it's a really bad idea. But the difference is that people who want independence cannot show how it would benefit Scotland, whereas people who want the Union can. And so that's why most people, of course, in Scotland want the Union, because it is beneficial. It can be shown to be beneficial, and it is a larger group, and it's always better to belong to the larger group than to be a small independent nation with no friends. Because the moment you go independent, there's an awful lot of problems. Staying in the Union, those problems are ameliorated. Anyway, in a brutal critique of the SNP, one audience member responded, I thought we had a vote not that long ago for independence. I voted for independence, but I'm glad I was in the minority. Asked to expand on it, she said, I just think the country's in such a mess and we do need a new government. Wow, somebody who voted for independence now wants a new government. That alone must be very, very worrying for the SNP. When people who even want independence don't want the SNP. That is a sign that they are about done. Asked to address the SNP failures in education later in the show, Miss Constance said the PISA results were just one source of evidence, which emitted groans from the audience. Well, They have to be the only source of evidence because you won't join all the other ones, which would show Scotland having one of the worst education systems in the Western world. That was Sturgeon, because it was so embarrassing, even for her, a woman with no embarrassment whatsoever with some of the things she's done, and haircuts, that she would even hide that from people because it was that bad that even she was embarrassed. Anyway, I can't go on with it. She's just full of shit, isn't she? Anyway, many viewers took to social media to slate her performance after the show, and one said, "I don't think the SNP will be letting Angela Constance appear anywhere near but Question Time again." And then another wrote, "I'm sure I can hear SNP supporting friends screaming for Angela Constance to stop talking." And by God, she needs to. She was absolutely awful. She really hasn't got a clue. And she can't answer the question. So when she's faced with a question she can't answer, she answers a completely different question. Deflection. And deflection is always a sign that you daren't answer the question, not that you can't answer the question. I'm coming up. Some people have never been allowed out, unaccompanied, not without an adult. The only trouble with the SNP is there's very few adults in the room. There are one or two, but not enough to guard the rest of them. These people need to be taken out, held their hand across the road. They've never joined the Tufty Club, have they? Joined the Mufti Club. Anyway, I shall stop there. Thank you very much for watching. Thank you very much for enjoying, I hope. Do please hit the subscribe button. Definitely hit the like button. And I will speak to you later. Bye.